Whether you're a first time home buyer or you've purchased many residential properties in the past, probably every time you've entered into that contract to buy, you've asked yourself, do I really need an inspection? Well, we're going to talk about that today because the answer is yes, absolutely, irrevocably, yes. Hi, I'm David Dowell, real estate broker and real estate attorney. I've been helping people buy and sell houses here in Central Florida for, almost 20 years now. And if you've been watching my channel before, you'll see that I tend to talk about things that I'm asked, questions that come up. And a really, really popular one that comes up almost every time I'm representing a buyer is, should I have an inspector go in and look at this house that I'm under contract for? And the answer is always yes, absolutely. I get it, it's an extra expense. People don't like to do that. For a small condo, townhouse, it might be $400 or so here in Central Florida. For a medium-sized house, maybe up to $500. But guys, it's probably the most important investment you're ever going to spend. Now, first of all, let's talk about this, what we call the inspection period. You see, here in Florida, all residential sale contracts have a little provision in it that says that you have a due diligence period. It might be called an inspection period. Same thing. The due diligence period will be for a certain number of days once the contract is signed. Typically, you fill that in. It can be 15 days. It's probably normal when you have a 30 or 45 days to close. But sometimes we have cash buyers who want to close in 10, 15 days. So the inspection period only might be 7 days. Now, what the inspection period means is you are not required to do an inspection, but you're given that amount of time, let's say 10 days, to go in, hire an inspector, go through the property, look at it, test anything out you want, and you've got that 10 days to make a final decision. For example, before the 10 days is up, you can say, you know what? I don't want this house. It's not worth it. There's too many problems. Or you might want to say, you know what, there's a few problems, but it's not worth the price I paid. Let's renegotiate. But you can always just cancel and get your escrow back if you do so before the expiration of that inspection period or due diligence period. But during that time, you absolutely want to hire a licensed inspector to go in and inspect that house. A lot of you bought houses before you've done this, but for first-time buyers, that means your realtor will know who an inspector is. If you don't have one, you Google one. There's tons of them. You're going to pay them to go in. They're going to spend probably an hour, hour and a half on a smaller property. They're going to look at everything. They're going to walk in. They're going to turn on every faucet. They're going to turn on the hot water on every faucet. They're going to turn on every light switch to make sure everything works. They're going to look for water leaks in the ceiling. They're going to look for water leaks below, crawl spaces. They're going to turn on all your appliances to make sure they work. Washers, dryers, stoves, make sure all the burners work, and so on. They'll turn on the air. They'll have that little gun, they'll zap the air temperature to make sure it's cooling down correctly, or your heat. They go through everything. They'll go outside, exterior, check your roof, cracks in the stucco or the siding of your wall, pretty much everything you can think of. And what they typically do is normally the same day or within 24 hours, they will give you a detailed report of everything that they see. Now, of course, they're going to find a lot of things that are wrong, but that's normal. Typically, an electrical outlet doesn't work, or this light bulb's not working. Big deal, right? But what you're looking for are the big issues, and they tend to summarize those at the end of the reports with photos. For example, a typical report might say, you got this electrical outlet, the smoke detector's not working, you got a leak in this faucet, one of the burners on the oven's not working. But at the very bottom, we'll summarize major things to look out for. Air conditioner. It's just not heating or cooling as expected. Appears to be a water spot in the ceiling. So perhaps there were leaks in the past. An inspector can't punch a hole in the wall to look at plumbing pipes or dig a hole in your floor. But they can look at what connects from the wall to your fixtures, like your washer. And if they see things like copper pipes or polyubylene pipes, which are outlawed today, that's a red light. Those things are going to have to be replaced. So after all said and done, you as the buyer, after the 7-day period or before the 7-day period expires, you're going to have a report. Now it's going to talk about the condition of the house, very detailed. In fact, it might tell you things that the owner doesn't even know. Because remember, and this is so valuable, because remember, when you walk in, people who don't hire inspectors, I mean, I hear so many times from buyers, they say, I just really don't want to spend that money. And I'm looking at the house, and it looks fine. I've turned on some switches, everything works. I've turned on the burners, air seems to be on, it's cold inside. They look around at the ceilings, I don't see any stains. So, and a lot of those people just say, I'm good with it. I'm sure this house is going to have some issues. They all do. Every single one we're going to look at is going to have the same issues. But I'm okay with it. We'll put some money into it. We'll be fine. I just want to take this house. I don't want to take the time or spend the money on an inspector. Bad idea. Even a house that looks perfect is going to have issues. And you're going to see all that from the inspector's report. I mean, I recently had someone who's looking to buy a townhome listed for $210,000. And it's an older one. It's a pretty cheap price for what you got. And we went under contract. She hired an inspector. Major issues. Polyubylene pipes. The whole place had to be repiped. AC wasn't working. All the windows were pretty much the incorrect size. They're all leaking. The wood around the frames were rotting. No electrical issues everywhere. No smoke alarms. Bottom line is, we renegotiated that and got the price of that townhouse down to $171,000. It makes a big difference. Now, a lot of times when you see big issues, they're going to cost you money. You've got options at that point, you as the buyer. Let's say you contracted a house for $300,000, and now you're going to go in, your inspector looks at everything and tells you things that you don't know. And to be honest with you, your seller, like I said, probably doesn't even know these things either. So you take these things and you go back to the seller, and you've got choices. You got to say, look, here's the list, here's the report. I couldn't see these things. Neither could you. But now we know they exist. I can't buy this house for, let's say, $500,000 that we contracted for. So you as a buyer have options. Option number one, walk away. Before the expiration of that inspection or due diligence period, remember, you've got the right to cancel that contract and get your escrow back. Option number two, renegotiate the price. Maybe say, look, we contracted for $500,000, but I have to repipe this house. I have to replace the air conditioner. It's 15 years old and it's almost dead, and so on. So now you guys renegotiate the price. Maybe you can get that $500,000 house down to now $485,000. That's your goal. The other options are, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, these are the problems. I'll keep the $500,000 contract, but you need to fix these. You need to fix them before the closing. And give me a receipt, give me proof that they've been fixed, because I'm going to go back and look before the closing. So folks, you've got options, but I can't stress enough that you need to hire an inspector as soon as you're under contract for a house. It is normal. Almost everybody does it. You can't feel bad, but you got to spend that money to do it, because there's so many little things that you can't see that an inspector can. Once you have that, it's also ammunition to either lower the price or get some kind of credit, repair credit from the seller, or get them to fix something before you close. Or if it's just not worth it, it gives you the chance to walk away. So I'm encouraging everybody in every single instance, whether it's a condo, townhouse, single family, hire that licensed inspector to go through everything, to give you the report, and make sure what you're buying is worth it. You will never, ever regret that. If you've got any questions, guys, on home inspections, the process, let me know. Shoot me a text, email, phone call, whatever is easiest. We'll start a conversation. See you next time.